This is the 8th and final episode of our southwestern Colorado and southeastern Utah fully electric RV trip. We've had a wonderful time over the last 8 days exploring new places in Colorado and Utah, and now on our 9th day we are packing up to head back home to the Salt Lake City, Utah area. The weather during this trip has been the hottest weather we've ever camped in with our fully solar-powered electric travel trailer, with temperatures peaking at or above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I've been monitoring the energy consumption of the mini split cooling the trailer to see what the worst case scenario looks like for what I anticipate experiencing in our travel trailer, and it has passed with flying colors. We've been leaving the mini split on continuously at 64 degrees Fahrenheit other than when towing the trailer to a new campsite, and the solar panels have been able to fully power everything, and the batteries have plenty of capacity for overnight power draws as well. If you're interested in more information about the modifications I've made to my trailer, plus the performance of the system, then I recommend checking out our prior videos from this trip, as well as trailer modification videos, which I'll link to in a playlist in the description, as well as in a card above. The sun is just barely beginning to peek over the bluff there, and it's currently 6:26 a.m. and James just woke up first, but his sisters are still asleep. It's currently 64.9 inside and 70.3 outside. The mini split has been set to 64 degrees all night. I took the battery down to 46%, and the sun is just barely starting to rise, like I said, so our solar is still virtually nothing. And our AC loads are kind of high right now because the water heater just barely cycled on, and it's been on all night. Automatically cycling on as needed. I just turned it off so you can see this is what the mini split is currently consuming. Last night the girls wanted to try something new, so they all slept in the dinette together. Good morning, girls.
Good morning.
How did you sleep last night?
Great.
Was it better sleeping here in the dinette? Like, was it cooler? Was it too cold?
No. Also, this morning, I think I accidentally put my foot in Claire's face and she just pushed it away.
Well, I would have done the same thing. So how much cooler was it up here versus in the back?
Oh, much.
Much cooler?
But that's probably half because I didn't have my sleeping bag like the other two.
Mm-hmm.
I only had a blanket and a pillow.
Oh, okay. Well, I think what we might do in the future is bring a fan along with us and put a fan somewhere on the floor or maybe hanging from up here, depending on what kind of fan I get. That's just kind of helping to pull some of this cool air back here into this back area, because this narrow doorway right here somewhat limits that airflow. And over here in the on the wall in here we have a regular electrical receptacle here. I also could use a 12-volt fan, so I'll look into that. What are you kids doing?
A train. And she's the front and she's a robot. She needs one more popsicle arm.
You kids are hilarious.
Okay, you're gone.
They just ditched James like a rock. They're like, get out of here, James, you're too slow. Wait, say that again?
It's too cold in here.
Oh, now you're saying that?
I've been saying this many times throughout the trip, but it is freezing right now.
Oh, well, I don't remember you saying that any other time during this trip.
I've been in my sweats and a blanket.
Usually we just get up and leave the trailer, and you are warm elsewhere. Apparently, I've been making the trailer colder than Jessica would like, but isn't it amazing that we can be camping in the hot desert and have a continuously electrically self-sustaining mobile home keeping us comfortable? I'm very pleased with how well the electrical system is working for cooling the trailer. There's a natural symbiosis of ample electricity generation from the solar panels in the summer when it's also hot, so there's plenty of electricity to power the air conditioning. However, on the flip side, this is not true, meaning in the winter there is not ample solar generation since the days are short and the sun is low in the sky. Plus, the power demands for heating the trailer are a little higher than cooling the trailer. I've made a video in the past camping in the winter, which I'll link to in a card above, but in general this isn't a problem for us because we don't typically camp in the winter. If we did though, we'd potentially need to either supplement the solar electricity with a generator, or we could switch to heating the trailer with the propane-powered ducted furnace that it came with. That most likely is what I would do in the coldest of weather because it heats the water tanks below the floor where the mini split does not. That being said, we do actually use the mini split to heat the trailer quite regularly while camping in the shoulder seasons to take off that morning chill, and there's plenty of solar as early as March and as late as October for powering the mini split for heating and cooling while camping, keeping the trailer nice and comfortable. What some people do for better solar production in the winter is tilt the solar panels, but that still doesn't overcome the limitation of the shorter days, which is significant. In my case, the solar panels are quite large and tilting them hasn't been necessary in my situation. To give you an idea of the difference between summer and winter production, I've done tests on or near the longest and shortest days of the year, and the power production varies from 5 kilowatt hours in the winter to 20 kilowatt hours in the summer. Tilting the panels in the winter would help, but according to the research I've done, roughly 60% of the 15 kilowatt hour seasonal difference is attributable to shorter winter daylight hours, while 40% stems from the low winter sun angle that a more optimal winter tilt would largely correct on clear days. Early on in the design process, I decided to simplify my design by flat mounting the panels, but I also installed as large of a solar array as possible to hopefully have enough power in those less than optimal situations, and it has worked great for us when we're camping. Lucy got bit by one of the ants outside, so she's chilling in here as an invalid while her ant bite feels like fire, she said. This is a great window seat though, huh? Look, you can see out the beautiful view.
Except the sun's in the way right now.
Well, the sun's too much in your eyes. Yeah. The other kids are out here and they moved across. This is the rocky area that they were playing in before, and I told them to go over there because it's away from the ant mound and it actually has better sand over there to play in. And this right here is the ant mound. It turns out is actually near our campsite. We hadn't really noticed up to this point because during the heat of the day they are not out at all, but right now they are out in force while it's cool. Today we are heading back home, and so right now we've brought in the slide out of the trailer and we're just getting packed up and ready to go. Just want to do one last systems update before we get on the road. So right now it is 66.6 degrees inside and 80.2 degrees outside, and we've had this mini split set to 64 degrees the entire time we've been pretty much on this trip. And this campsite we've been at 2 nights and a couple of days, and it's been set to 64 degrees that entire time, but it hasn't always fully achieved it. But 67 degrees is what it was when we got back to the trailer yesterday at the hottest part of the day, so I'd say that's a pretty good win in my book. Looking over here at the electrical system, we're at 49%. It got as low as 40% this morning, and we're getting 1500 watts of solar. Mini split's consuming 580 watts to keep the temperatures that it is, and right now it's 9:36 a.m. Let's get on the road. I finished my trailer retrofit to make it fully solar electric powered at the end of 2021, and at that time I wasn't sure if covering the outdoor unit of the mini split would be needed, so Jessica helped me to make this cover for it. It's some kind of felt lined vinyl, and as you can see the cover material has not held up well to this use case. After this trip I've just left the cover off, and there hasn't been any problems with the fan spinning backwards or the radiator getting too dusty. Also, I've had many people suggest putting a fairing at the front edge of the solar panels to direct wind over the panels. I'd love to do that someday, if for nothing else to experiment with whether or not a fairing would help gas mileage, but I haven't taken the time to do anything, and frankly I'm doubtful that a fairing would make much of a difference in gas mileage. I'd be happy to be proven wrong though, so if you have any data on this, sound off in the comments below. Well, we stopped at the Love's truck stop in Green River, Utah to dump our black and gray water tanks, which is where we've gone in the past. But they've changed and remodeled the place, and it's now a bit of a campground, and they're charging $10 for a dump. So we just continued on our way, and there's another place in Price, Utah, another hour on that we've been to before to dump our tanks, so we'll try doing it there, and we'll eat lunch there as well.
Twin Stars was weaving a basket out of thin, pliant strips of white wood.
We're dumping now at the Sinclair here in Price. It has a free RV dump station. It's still free, so that's nice of them. And it also has the Blackwater flush hydrant right there. So we're just getting this dumped and then we'll get back on the road. And at this point we have another hour-and-a-half drive before we get home. While the tanks are draining out, we're all eating lunch here in the trailer. What do you eat for lunch, girls?
Peanut butter sandwich.
Peanut butter
sandwich.
sandwiches?
He's eating peanut butter sandwiches. You're eating that.
All right. And as a systems update, we have 94% on the battery, and it's charging at 1900 watts. We're getting 2100 watts from the solar right now, and our AC loads are almost nothing. We're not going to bother to turn on the mini split right now because it's covered. The outdoor unit is covered. So we're definitely going to get fully charged here shortly, and then when we get home, I'll plug the Tesla into the trailer and draw down the energy on the RV battery. We are now home, and we went already to home and dropped off the trailer, and I dropped off Jessica and the girls. I'm now at the local Costco, and I'm going to gas up the truck. And of course, as always at Costco, there's a long line of traffic. This is something we never have to do in our Tesla, that's for sure. Well, that ended up being $99.66 to get 27.69 gallons at $3.59 a gallon for 85 octane. I'm back to the trailer after having gassed up the truck, and I just wanted to do a last little update here on the trailer. As you can see, the battery's down to 98%. It was at 100% when we got home, of course, and I plugged the Tesla into it immediately. So the solar is still producing 2 kilowatts right now. You can see it is currently 2:56 p.m. and the Tesla is pulling 2385 watts. Every day that we are not camping in our trailer, its solar panels are still producing electricity, so I charge my electric cars with that solar electricity. I made a video about how I do that, which I'll link to in a card above and in the description below. In short summary though, we drove 3,468 miles from the solar electricity from the trailer alone from March through October. This is the Victron monitoring portal for this day of the trip, and we left and started driving somewhere around here, and that's why the energy dropped off, which is the consumption is these red columns here. And so you can see the consumption was pretty minimal for all those hours that we were driving home, but the production was climbing and basically fully producing, because that's the joys of rooftop installed solar panels, is that they are producing at all times regardless of whether you're traveling on the road or not, versus ground deployed, for instance, that you have to put away when you're traveling. The battery completely filled up around noon and stayed fully charged for a couple of hours, and then as soon as we got home I plugged it into our Tesla like I mentioned and discharged it throughout the remainder of the day, and apparently I lost sight of that, forgot, and let it get down to 13%, which I don't normally do. I try to keep it closer to 40%, but yeah, that happens sometimes. So the consumption for the day was 17.2 kilowatt hours and the solar production was 15.6. That production would have been more if the battery had not fully charged, and then also it's interesting, we consumed more than we produced because we started the day at a higher state of charge than we ended the day. This graph shows the entire time that we were away on our trip, and each of these columns, the red is the consumption of from the alternating current of that day, and the orange columns is the solar production of that day, and then this blue area is the state of charge of the battery over the course of each of those days. The blue line in the middle is the average, but the range of the blue shows how charged and how discharged the battery got each of those days. This first day you can see I started the trip with a completely empty battery. I emptied it out just as before we were just leaving, emptied it into our Tesla, and then over the course of the next couple of days we used as much power as we could use pretty much, and the battery got up into this range, this low range here. On this day it got as low as 20%, and then it kind of went back up, and then on that last day that's when I discharged it into the Tesla again, so the battery went back pretty low again. You can see over the course of the whole trip we consumed 98.2 kilowatt hours and the solar production was 124 kilowatt hours. So as a wrap up for this trip, I would say the trailer and all of the technology and it worked just wonderfully for us, especially considering the heat that was involved in the location we went to in this time of year being around 100 degrees. Having the ample solar and the mini split to cool things down worked wonderfully well. This was by far the hottest trip that we've ever been on, literally camping in the trailer. It's been in this hot of temperatures before, but just on the side of our house, and so actually living in it and experiencing it out off-grid camping was a great experiment. Now yesterday was a good example of having camped in the same location 2 nights in a row and then just leaving the mini split on continuously all day long, and the solar was still enough energy that it charged the battery and powered the air conditioning all day long while it was charging the battery. and I had the mini split set to 64 degrees virtually this entire trip whenever I turned it on. So that's a testament to the power of the solar panels that are on the roof and the quantity of them. One thing I would mention is that the battery wasn't fully discharged in the morning for what it's worth, but you know, it was a normal amount of energy being consumed as we lived in the trailer, so I think it's a real world example. On this trip, we didn't use a generator at any point. In fact, we didn't even bring one. We did have some gas cans in the back of the truck for the truck in case, you know, we miscalculated and needed the range, extra range from a gas can. In the future, if we have an electric truck towing us, then we would have a little bit of extra range we could put into the truck from this trailer and the solar array and everything that I've been doing here. And I recognize the limitations of that. It's not going to be a lot of extra range, and we won't be able to get it crazy fast. But it's still far better than, say, a 120 volt generator would be if we were trying to charge an electric car on the side of the road, which you just plan better, and that shouldn't ever be a thing. In any case, I'm very pleased with not having had to spend any gasoline on, you know, say electricity for a generator to run air conditioning in the trailer while we were on this trip. We also never used any propane. In fact, we didn't even bring any propane canisters on this trip since everything in our trailer is electric. If you're interested in seeing more details about this trailer and on the ways that I've retrofitted it to be fully electric, I'll put a card above right here, and that'll point to the playlist of the different videos that I've made of the various components of the trailer. Also, our refrigerator right here, this is one of the components that I replaced, and it's not an absorption refrigerator, it's a DC compressor freezer up here on top and fridge on the bottom, and so it only uses electricity, and it uses very little electricity at that. If we look in here, you can see how much space there is. In fact, we even have some popsicles still left over from the trip that I put in there over a week ago, and they've been staying frozen in here great throughout the trip, of course. And down here in the fridge, we still have our food we haven't taken out from this trip. And, you can see it does not have the absorption refrigerator fins in here, so there is more space in here when it's a compressor fridge. And then as a brief primer, this is the induction cooktop, and then this is a convection microwave oven. So I installed all three of those appliances after having taken out the propane appliances. And up here, this is where the microwave was previously from the manufacturer, and I simply just took it out, and we use it now as a pantry basically. And down here was a propane oven previously, so we've consolidated the electric microwave that was above and this propane oven into one device that is now just electric. And then one last low-tech thing that is not electrically based at all is this is our Berkey water filter that I have strapped to the wall. You can see the ties here and some brackets that are screwed on the wall and stuck to the wall, and the Berkey works wonderfully well here. We can fill cups directly with it right here underneath in this sink. We can see the indicator sight window here of how full it is, and we can fill it by just pulling down on our faucet here and then bring it up and around over into the top of the Berkey after taking the lid off, of course, and run it that way. So it's a great way to be able to filter your water, especially when you're filling up from questionable water sources. In the future, my intention is to be able to tow this trailer with an electric truck. In any case, we were pulling it now with our Ford F-250 truck, which is kind of a gutless vehicle. It's gas, and I have to flog it pretty hard going up hills. But for now, we have this trailer, and we're able to use the technology and make wonderful, fun family memories together. Over the entire trip, we drove 1,152 miles at 8.66 miles per gallon on average. The trip consumed 133 gallons of gasoline, which cost us $494. I love not having to fill up propane tanks at the end of a trip. There were no other consumables besides food for us, of course. The solar panels powered all other systems on the trailer, and we got free water from various sources. When I originally designed my trailer's electrical system, I envisioned eventually towing it with an electric truck and being able to send excess electricity to that truck. But alas, we have not yet achieved that goal. As of right now, my research points to a series hybrid electric truck, often referred to as an extended range electric vehicle, as the best option. Unfortunately, there is not yet such a truck available to purchase, so I'm still waiting to see what the market will provide. The announced options so far are the Dodge Ram Charger, Ford Lightning, EREV, and the Scout. However, my requirement is that it must have a 6-seat option in addition to the required payload and tongue weight requirements of my setup, and those details have not yet yet been announced for all of those trucks. If the market takes too long, I may switch to another gasoline-powered truck or perhaps a diesel. Since I currently have a truck that works, I have time to wait. If you know of any other upcoming options, let me know in the comments below. So I hope this has been helpful to show and showcase this technology of the solar on the trailer and the inverters and the batteries and the balance of that and the balance of power, so to speak, of these different components, and that they actually are working really well together. And I wish you the best on your own solar journey if you are building out an RV, or just enjoy watching us go on trips and get ideas for your own trips that you, I'm sure, go on as well. With that, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.